The Shift is brought to you by SE Healthcare. Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dr. Andrea Coyle. Welcome back to the next episode of the Shift podcast. With me today is Dr. Kathy Sienko, and she was introduced to me by a mutual friend, Bonnie Barnes. And Bonnie said, "Oh my gosh, you have to meet Kathy. She is this amazing, fabulous person." And then, as social media would have it, I read this incredible story that Kathy posted on LinkedIn, and I thought, I need to meet this superstar right away. So we connected. She's coming to us all the way from Saudi Arabia. Kathy, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Kathy, here's what I really want the Shifties, and now you're an official Shifty. What really intrigued me to learn more about you is on LinkedIn, you talked about the power of caring and compassion and how that came from your mom. Can you start to can you tell the Shifties that story?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a very large family. We were 10 of us, 8 girls and 2 boys. And by the time I was 11, my father had passed. So my mum was a single parent. She was late 30s, coming into her 40s, and she was wheelchair bound and could not work. And as I look back on that, I think about what might it have looked like or felt like to her to have to raise 10 children with no welfare or any discernible source of income. But it didn't dawn on me at the time because what I saw was a very different manifestation. I saw a person who was very generous and very caring and who was always open to helping someone else from her point of need and from her own meager resources. So there was always someone else living in our home as a foster child. There was always an extra plate of food in case somebody came by. I saw my mum, which we did not realize until much later. If we were in the middle of dinner and somebody had dropped by, she would take some food off her plate and take a little bit of everybody else's plate to make up a new plate for somebody else. So what I saw was somebody who was intensely caring, intensely compassionate, not just at the level of individuals, but at the level of society as well, and very much faithful in her belief in God. And that is something that I think has translated to me in my own practice and also in the way that I view life.
I love that story, and thank you for sharing that with us. And how did what you learned from your mother, how did you take that love and compassion out of the four walls of your home and take that into healthcare? And did you always want to be a nurse? Like, how did that come to be, Kathy?
That's an interesting question because the truth is, I never wanted to be a nurse. Of all of the things and the people that I thought of being as I was coming through life, nursing was not one of them. And so I'll come back to that whole idea of faith in a minute and where you end up in life. But I suppose in the careers that I've ended up in, I was a teacher before I joined nursing. There has always been this sense of wanting to serve other people and viewing my service or my work actually as service to God as opposed to just a job. And I brought with that a genuine caring about people. I really do care about individuals and communities and societies and countries and just genuinely have a real concern about the state of the whole world. And I'm not sure that's always a good thing, but I do. And I also have this faith that despite the fact that I did not desire to be a nurse when I was growing up, that the reason I have been able to manifest in the way that I have is because I've ended up where God has wanted me to be and where he at least feels that I can serve him best. And so those two things are really connected. The sense of what I brought from my home, from my upbringing, into my professional life. And then the sense that I've ended up where I should be, and therefore I'm most effective and purpose driven. Those two things are very much connected for me. And then I think the third part of that is that while I'm very focused on being rewarded and remunerated for the quality and the value that the quality of my work and the value that I bring, money has never really been the most important driver for me. It really has always been about doing great work and then the rewards actually follow. And that might not always translate or be meaningful for people who are in an economic bind where money really does matter. I've grown up in a family where money really did matter. We hardly had anything, but that I didn't see that as a driver with my mum. I saw generosity and compassion and this sense that God will always provide. And so that's kind of what I brought into my work, that if I do the right thing, if I give value, if I focus on being the best that I could be, the money will always follow. And reality is it always has.
So you mentioned, and you and I talked about this before
Mhm.
the podcast, that you didn't necessarily want to get into nursing. It wasn't your first
Mhm.
career choice. It was not my first career choice. Mine was teaching as well.
Oh,
Along
wow.
the way, yeah, along the way, don't you feel like nurses, we teach all day, every day. We teach human compassion, caring, service driven, experience driven, because we do more than just serve. In my opinion, we do more than just serve a patient, a family, a community, the globe. I think we create experiences for people as well. So I
I
always like, what, don't you agree?
I totally love that. I think when I think back on my career, the people who were most impactful to me were nurses who were teachers. And I don't mean people who had a career in nursing education. They were people who took the time to really show you stuff, to teach you stuff, either through example or through a deliberate act of sitting you down to do something with you or to role model something with you. But the ones who were critical in my choice of nursing, or at least landing in my purpose, were the ones who were teachers. And I think it's something that nurses are really amazing at when we do it well. And I also think that when we don't lean into that part of what we do, the experiences you described is often not as positive as it could be. And you look at the other side of nurse retention, and that is sometimes we lose people because rather than teach, we kind of eat them. And we find a way to kind of shove them out the door by pointing out their ignorance rather than helping them to learn stuff. And so I totally agree with you that nurses make amazing teachers, but it is something that I do feel that we have to lean into and to understand the power of that to create positive experiences and negative experiences.
I, I love this conversation, Kathy. I think, yes, you know, we often focus on what we're not doing right or what we're not doing well. And if we would shift, and that's part of the reason why I named the podcast The Shift, if we would shift that mindset into let's look for the good. You know, we think about all of our new to nurses, new to nurse practice nurses, and we're so quick to make sure they're labeling everything or, you know, they're checking all these boxes, but it goes back to that experience that you and I keep talking about. You know, it's okay sometimes to not get it right. Humility through acceptance. We have to
Yeah.
accept that I'm not going to know everything. You're not going to know everything, but through our experience together, I'm going to learn something from you. You're going to learn something from me. And I think nurses are life experience builders. And I totally believe that. And Kathy, what I've already experienced with you is is your unbelievable compassion and caring for society, not just for one person. So thank you for the experience. I just want to thank you on the podcast. Thank you for that experience. Um, Thoughts on, your role in Saudi Arabia is interesting. You're a chief nurse exec of the system. How do you create experiences in your different hospitals? Because sometimes the cultures are a little different. How do you create those positive experience in a challenging environment at times?
Part of it is really understanding the culture of each part of the organization. So there are some things that bind us that are foundational to our practice, that I think are not negotiable, irrespective of wherever you work. So that's compassion and caring and our ethical foundations and patient safety, employee safety. Those are things that I think, in my sense, are not negotiable anywhere. So it's finding those foundational pieces that bind us together that makes you a King Faisal nurse, that whichever site you're on, you're committed to safety, you're committed to employee well-being, you are committed to quality of care, you're committed to being a continuous learner, you're committed to looking after your own health as well. And you're committed to creating healthy work environments where people want to come and do their best work every day. Beyond that, and again, I always kind of have to go back to my mom. So one of the things she was really good at is she had a lot of grandchildren, but she seemed to know each of them by um, the things that they were into, who was into football, who was into cooking, who was into art, who was into astronomy. And she found a way to encourage each of them in their passions and at the same time be part of this really close family. And I'm not for a minute suggesting that nurses are like children. I don't want to offend anybody like that. But I think this sense of getting to know each site and getting to know the people that you work with and understanding what drives them is quite important in terms of how you keep things together and at the same time allow people the freedom to be who they are, whether that's at the level of an individual site or at the level of an individual person, and just recognizing the biases that you also bring into that space. So I can tell you that I'm not someone who necessarily desires or needs public affirmation to feel that I'm doing a good job. Like it's great when it happens, but I have a sense I'm probably hardest on myself more than anybody in the world. So I don't need it. And for a while in my career, the individuals who needed that kind of affirmation would really irritate me because it felt, and maybe it's a British thing as well, I don't know. It felt really kind of showy and needy and all of that sort of stuff. But what I've come to understand over the years is that everyone has a different need that, if it's ministered to in the right way, drives them to want to do their best work. And my job is to understand that and to really use those levers to get them to do their best work and to be excited every day to come to work and to want to be a King Faisal employee, and not just the employees who are here actually. I want people who are outside King Faisal to see what we do and to desire to be here. I want them to feel the vibe of, and I don't say this in any kind of hoodoo way, but it is a vibe, right? It's understanding what you bring to the table and really existing within that and making it work to the best outcome of your patients and your organization and yourself.
I like that you said the vibe, and through you and a meaningful connection, I connected with Dr. Joanne Cooper, who works at King Faisal in Riyadh. And there is definitely a vibe in speaking with Dr. Cooper. She told me to call her Joe, so I could just call her Joe.
Yeah,
Her vibe is elevating the profession of nursing. And I
absolutely.
could feel that just even Kathy through a brief 30-minute conversation with Kathy and I'm sorry, with Joe. So I get the vibe and I get the culture that you're creating. And we talked about this. I actually spent time at King Faisal in 2019, and
Mm,
what an experience to work with nurses literally from all over the world.
yes.
All over the world. I met Chi Chi, and she still works there. So, hey to Chi Chi. And there are some others that still work there that I met. But what I've really left in this amazing experience at King Faisal is that at the end of the day, nurses make the impossible possible.
Oh,
And
for real.
for real, right, Kathy?
Huh?
And
For real.
and it's interesting. I met a large group of nurses from India and a large group of nurses from the Philippines and
Mm,
a large group of nurses from Bangladesh. And the one common thread was how much we care about people.
mm.
And that's the vibe to me of King Faisal. And I am thrilled and excited and waited on bated breath to see the continued shifts under your leadership that are going to happen there, Kathy.
So I'm excited too because this is the first time we have had a chief nursing officer in the
Mhm.
history of we're 50 years old in 2025, and it's the first time we actually have had a CNO. So I feel the weight of responsibility very, very heavily, even though there has been nobody, not our CEO, not the chairman of the board, there has been nobody who has put that pressure on me. But what King Faisal does is very important. And it's a huge part of the vision of a country. So when I think about, and when I spoke earlier about caring about people at the level of individuals and societies and countries, this is what I mean. King Faisal's vision is for the country and for the region and for the world. And that is quite a big mantle to take on. And we're speaking on a really important day today. It's the founding day of the kingdom. And I could imagine that the leaders of the country at the time that the kingdom was founded probably had a vision that transcended anything that we could think about today. And to be part of that history of the way that the kingdom is transforming. So on your theme of shifts, the way that the kingdom is transforming and what King Faisal means and delivers as part of that, I definitely feel the weight of that responsibility. And it does make me and the team want to do better and better and more and more. And this, when I say to you that the money doesn't matter, that's kind of what I'm referring to because you get to make an impact on something that is way bigger than yourself. And there is no amount of money that would ever compensate you or would match the awe that I have for being here at this point in time and being charged with the responsibility of leading this awesome group of nurses to make a huge impact on the history of a country. The health of a population, there's nothing better that you can do for somebody than to help them to be healthy because health is the tide that floats all boats. And our nurses do that really well.
Oh my gosh, Kathy, we could talk forever. And I'm officially extending an invitation for you to come back on the podcast. I'd love to hear your progress.
Mm.
Typically, Kathy, we end the episode with a lesson learned. And can you share with the shifties one of your biggest lessons learned on this great journey of yours? Because you've been on an amazing journey.
I have. I've been here for 16 years in the kingdom, but my career was not always in nursing. As you know, I taught school and then I became a nurse. I worked in the UK for about 15, 20 years nearly. And part of that was working in tech. Um, so I spent 10 years working in tech for what is now Oracle. And then I came to the kingdom about, this is my 16th year. And the one thing I will say is that what we do as nurses, and maybe if you'll give me two things that I'll
Yes,
try
I'll
to
give
stick
you
with.
two.
So one is that as nurses, we make things that are really complex and extraordinary look really ordinary, and that's a gift. It's the most amazing gift to be able to take a level of complexity, something that is so finely tuned that is almost imperceptible to the naked eye, and to make it look so, it's often life or death, and to make it look so ordinary. I think that's one of the most critical gifts that nursing has and nurses have. And I think the other thing I would say is I've learned to not be afraid. Um, that where there isn't a path, you have to create one. And the thing that you're afraid of, or the things that you're afraid of, often exist only in your head. And you find out that your imagination is often worse than the reality of what you're going through. And that if you're the person who makes that shift, who creates that path, before you know it, other people were actually waiting for you to do that. They too wanted to do that, and they will follow. And you then create a new system or a process or a new way of thinking that had not existed before. And for me, learning to not be afraid and to move and to listen to my inner voice and to move when the time has come to move has been the greatest blessing of my life and my career.
Okay, Kathy, you just dropped the mic. That was awesome. I love it. Kathy, thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you for the experience of getting to know you. I think you're an amazing leader. I'm again inviting you to come back to the shift, share more of your experiences and more of the great transformation that's happening with nursing and the country of Saudi Arabia. Hopefully I'll get to see you at AONL in Chicago.
Yeah, looking forward.
Yep, we'll have to connect. And Shifties, at the end of every podcast, I say this, and I really mean it. Your shift makes the difference. Keep shifting. Enjoying the shift? Help us reach more nurse leaders by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app. It takes just a minute, but makes a big impact. Search for The Shift, tap those stars, and share what you love. Your feedback shapes our future episodes and helps others discover us. Remember, rate, review, and amplify The Shift today.